Ukraine is considered to be one of the most melodious nations in the world, and a choral singing is one of the most popular forms of musical art among Ukrainians. Outstanding choirmaster Viktor Ikonnik raised the genre of choral art to the highest level of Ukrainian culture. Further, in today's program, we'll focus on conductor, teacher and composer Viktor Ikonnik. The official name of this band is the Boris Latoshinsky Classic Music Ensemble, more popularly known as Ikonnik's Choir. Ikonnik established a choral culture, which is a separate sphere that fits well into the choral culture. He had such an original approach to chorus sound and a respect for the sound of a choir as it relates to the chord and the theme of a performance that is even difficult for me to describe. He considered a choral chord as a living organism that not only carried the clarity, richness and beauty of sound, but also should exude reverent emotions from the inside. Viktor Ikonnik founded his own school. Among his disciples were all the famous choral conductors and half of the choristers. Viktor Ikonnik, born in 1929 in the Poltava Oblast, graduated from the Odessa Conservatory, class of Professor Konstantin Pigrov and Professor Dmitro Zahretsky. After graduating from the conservatory, he worked in Nizhin and then in the music and pedagogical faculty of the Kiev Pedagogical Institute. From 1961 to 1968, he also taught at the Kiev State Tchaikovsky Conservatory, created the Kiev Chamber Choir, first as amateur and in 1973 as a professional choir, which was named after Boris Latoshinsky in 1981. In 1992, the National House of Organ and Chamber Music hosted the Boris Latoshinsky Classical Music Ensemble established by him. People's Artist of Ukraine, winner of the Taras Shevchenko National Prize, composer, author of choral works to Taras Shevchenko's poems, as well as foreign and Ukrainian poets. The ensemble is unique in terms of its priorities in art and sound manner. Even singers of a choir are placed in a special way, like in a quartet. In the 1960s, the American choir, led by Robert Shaw, gave concerts in Kiev that developed the Ukrainian choral school. These concerts hit the soul of the young Ukrainian choirmaster Viktor Ikonnik. We listened to the American student professional choir founded by Robert Shaw that performed both miniatures and large pieces. I cannot say it was the impact, rather the impetus to be different from others. It was Mozart who inspired Viktor Ikonnik to get into music. He was accepted by the Odessa Conservatory as an experiment. He had absolutely no musical training, and he knew nothing about notes. When he first came to rehearse in Pigrov's choir, he had to perform a piece by Mozart. He said, "I immediately understood it's for me." In his first year, he had a full workload and played suites. He said his fingers do not interfere with hitting the keys. I was a tractor driver. He grabs the material in 2 years. Now the Boris Latoshinsky Classical Musical Ensemble is one of the best choral bands not only in Ukraine, but also in Europe. It was the amateur choir of Musical and Choral Society that started everything. It was the first to appear in Ukraine with pieces by Orlando Lasso, Claudio Monteverdi, Scarlatti, Palestrina, Clement Janikin. Both musicians and the public audience discovered a huge layer of music of the Renaissance era. The rehearsals were very interesting, but sometimes cruel, because if something went wrong, he first hated himself and then us. But when we did our best, the tension weakened. When I came, it was the chamber choir named after Latoshinsky, but it was widely known even then. When I told my colleagues that Viktor Ikonnik invited me to join the chamber choir, nobody believed me. Joining it meant that you had a voice and you could do something. Viktor Ikonnik is a legend. Even during Soviet times, he began performing spiritual music that was prohibited. Such music was not welcomed by officials. This stage saw all pieces by Vedel. This included a huge number of spiritual music by Bach, Handel, Haydn, Mozart.
Огромное количество духовной музыки, Иоганна Себастьяна Баха, Генделя, Гайдна, Моцарта.
In the 1950s and the 1960s, when Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, such Ukrainian composers as Dyletsky, Bortnyansky, and Berezovsky were very well known, but their works were seldom performed. Very few choir masters dared to sing about God in a totally atheistic country, but Ikonnik's chamber choir had the audacity to do this. I remember such a comical episode when an event gathered people distant from a choral culture, and when they heard the word Hallelujah, they said, no, it must be vocalized. Ikonnik responded to this saying, no, if this is the case, then I will request that my pieces be removed from the concert repertoire. Seeing as he had his own moral principles, it was very difficult to approach him with such a proposal. Ukrainian musical art dates back to the old times. Choral music by Dyletsky, Bortnyansky, and Berezovsky gave the impetus to musical culture in Ukraine. Ukraine indeed had its own musical Renaissance era. Who sang during the Renaissance era? Ikonnik drew parallels between the Renaissance era and a Ukrainian choral concert. He was able to show that they had something in common. Another merit of Viktor Ikonnik is that he opened to Ukraine and the whole world the brilliant composer Artemy Vedel. Our master possessed great knowledge, but the most important thing was that he felt as a conductor what kind of music should be performed. He was the only one to perform the music written by Artemy Vedel in this way. Many sing Vedel's pieces as instrumental music, while Ikonnik focused on canonical texts that led to the fusion of music and words. This man got a drive from serving the arts and God. When I asked whether he attends church masses to pray, he replied, of course, we sing about God every day. It's impossible to play all the music, but as for the choral genre, the chamber choir directed by Viktor Ikonnik could perform almost all a cappella music. And if you look at the choral works accompanied by the orchestra, they have great perspectives. They attracted Ikonnik, who founded the Boris Latoshinsky Classical Music Ensemble on the basis of the chamber choir in 1992. Viktor dreamed of a chamber orchestra all his life, so we performed pieces not only by Vedel, Berezovsky, but also those of Mozart and Haydn. I consider it the only band in the world to combine choir and orchestra together. I participated in many bands. I was on tour abroad, and such works as masses and requiems involved choir and orchestra separately. There were several rehearsals held before the concert, but our team is the only one in which we perform together all the time. We even feel each other, and our ensemble is perfect. Viktor Ikonnik especially respected Bach's music. He believed there should be 2 live performances of High Mass every concert season. In addition to that, the choir performed a huge number of musical works by Ukrainian composers. The focus of the choir performances was on the pieces by Boris Lyatoshinsky, whose name was given to the chamber choir in 1981 and later to the classical music ensemble. This is that genre of creativity of Ikonnik. He understood Lyatoshinsky so well, in whom the spirit of chords lived. Apparently, it was in this way that Ikonnik felt his music.
Видимо, Виктор Михайлович эту логику почувствовал.
In the choral world, the name of Viktor Ikonnik is so great and authoritative that the festival was named in his honor, and the fact that the band he established and led for over 40 years became the basis for the festival does not need any explanation or words.
Мы захотели как-то его вкусы.
We wanted to embody his taste, his musical moods, and his sound. For this reason, ensembles have invited choirs that performed the music of that era to this festival, which gave huge impetus and provided the opportunity to perform Passion for Matthew.
Коллективы. Фестиваль, конечно, очень такой толчок дал большой. Во всяком случае, мне дал возможность страсти по Матфею спеть.
Today, young singers and musicians who didn't know Viktor Ikonnik, but they also worship the master, as well as those artists who were lucky enough to work with Viktor, have joined the ensemble. He opened the road for many artists to high art.
Я пришла совсем такой юной девочкой, мне был 21 год.
I joined the band when I was a young girl. Viktor listened to me, saw my talent, and gave me the opportunity to open up and grow. He always found certain talent in people and gave them the chance to open it up and let it flourish.
Он всегда в людях видел какую-то такую искру таланта, и вот всегда помогал этой искре разгореться.
Ikonnik worked a lot with intonation. He could momentarily stop the whole choir and work over perfectly only one line for nearly an hour. I will remember all my life his phrase, "It is wrong to say I sing higher or lower. To what extent higher or lower? You have to sing exactly."
Людям, которые хотели, очень хотели.
He gave a chance and even encouraged people who really wanted to sing, saying, "You can do it. You'll definitely do it. And don't worry, everything will work out just fine."
У тебя получится. Но аккорд
His chord always reflected the soul.
душу.